You're still watching the AM show. Now, some heads of private senior high schools in the country have expressed disappointment at the government over the manner in which it has handled its free SHS policy. The heads who are having to deal with almost empty classrooms since the program took off say they have been neglected completely by government. But why do they feel left out when really they're not government owned and are not government controlled? Let's have a conversation now. And Fred Asari is Central Regional Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools, CHOPS. Yes. Thank you for coming. And Joseph Jamasi is the General Secretary of CHOPS. Good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
Okay. So I think just like my intro, you're private. So really, what do you want the government to do for you when this policy is a government-controlled policy, the free SHS?
Well, we are private, but history is important as we answer this question. Over the last several years, private senior high schools have partnered with government to play a very important role in providing access to secondary education for all Ghanaian children. For many, many years, students couldn't have access to public schools because there weren't enough facilities. In fact, in 2005, if you remember, when the computer placement system was first introduced, it was chaos. Only those who scored aggregate 24 had access to public schools. And everybody beyond that were left out. And we private schools came in to provide access and complement government effort of providing free education to all Ghanaian children. And this partnership had continued all these years. Now, if government is even in a position to cater for all Ghanaian children right now, this is not a time to leave us out. Because for many years, we have played that role. We have invested heavily in the educational sector. And therefore, it is important that they provide that opportunity for us to continue to provide those services to Ghanaian children. That is what we are saying.
Okay. Ms. Asari, was there a conversation prior to the implementation of the policy?
Yes, there was. We did engage the ministry. We did present our proposals to the ministry for consideration. And we believed that those proposals would be taken into consideration. It was only when the policy was fully rolled out that we realized that we had been completely left out.
Okay. So if they had taken your proposal into consideration, what would it have meant?
Well, it would have meant government giving the option to parents to choose whether they want to go to a private or a public school, and then government sponsorship following the children wherever they went. It is similar to what we're talking about when we talk about the National Health Insurance System. When a patient is sick, the patient can go to a private hospital or go to a public hospital. When the patient goes to a private hospital, the bill is sent to the National Health Insurance Scheme and they pay. And that is what we are saying. Let the money follow the student. So that if the
But are you charging the same as the public schools? No?
No, we are not charging the same, but it is not that much of a difference. And I mean, for example, there are private schools right now. They ranges between 650 cedis and 850. That's the average charge. Now, from next term.
And this is what, admission, or this is
no, this is boarding fees.
Okay.
So you provide 3 meals, and you pay graduate teachers, you pay cooks, you run your facility, they use water, they use electricity, all that within 650. Now, government going forward, the recurrent expenditure that government anticipates will be for boarding students 105 cedis and 47 pesos. And then the feeding will be 459 cedis and 20 pesos. So going forward from next term, government will be spending on average about 564 cedis and 67 pesos. If a private student is charged 650, then that means that if the parent decides to send the child to the private institution, the parent only has 85 cedis because we pay salaries. See, what government is spending on the students right now does not cover salaries of teachers. And so if government even were to give that to us, we still have to pay teachers. And in secondary school or high schools, our teachers are all graduate teachers, and we are paying them. And so it's just a little top-up to be able to do that. And we are not saying government should post students to the private schools. Give them the option so that if a parent chooses that to send the child to a private school, then the parent understands that beyond the government subsidy, they are going to top up so that the schools can provide quality education for them.
So the criticism here is you are still private schools. Your schools still do exist.
Right.
Parents have not been stopped from choosing your schools if they so wish.
Yes, but let me just, before my brother Joseph joins, the private health facilities, they are still private health facilities. They are not owned by government, but government is working with CHAG, the Christian Health Association of Ghana, and other bodies to provide health care. In fact, sometimes when public hospitals workers go on strike, government even advises the public to find a private hospital to go to. So the private hospitals are still private hospitals. Government is engaging industry to build factories. One factory, one district, one factory will not be built by government. It will be built by private entrepreneurs. And government will help them, enable them to do that. So if government is engaging the private sector in industry, building factories, and government is engaging the private sector in health, healing the nation, why can't government engage the private sector in education?
Now, over the last 3-4 weeks, the discussion has always been about public, as though private schools don't exist at all. Many parents want their kids to get good education. That is the bottom line. If in a town we have good public schools and good private schools, it makes sense to make use of all these facilities, as opposed to sending a student from that town thousands of kilometers away to be a day student, when in his community there's a good private school where that child can enjoy good education. So it is important that as we have the facilities in place already, government tap into those facilities, provide the right resources for the Ghanaian child to be able to access secondary education in his area.
How many senior high schools privately owned come under your umbrella?
About 280 senior high schools. And we need to make this distinction. These are the mainstream private senior high schools. These are schools that ride the WASI. We are not talking about the exclusive private senior high schools. Usually when people talk about cost, that is where their mind goes. They are looking at the dollar charging schools and etc. No, these are mainstream private senior high schools. And we basically exist to make a difference in the life of Ghanaian kids. We saw a problem and we came to assist to help that problem. And therefore it is important for us to continue to do that job.
Let's talk about what the situation looks like. Yesterday, it was almost like an empty classroom, but really, is it an empty classroom that you're running in terms of the Form 1s now?
Virtually it is. We have the Form 2s and Form 3s, but virtually it is empty when it comes to Form 1s. Very, very few people are trickling in, and it doesn't look bright at all.
But that's only because you were not included as part of the schools that students could choose from.
That's
Yes.
right.
But the point is, you know, let's come back again. You're privately owned, so why don't you just package yourself and advertise yourself and let people decide to come to your school if they want to?
It's not an either-or situation. It's a both end. We are doing that. We are doing that. And we are saying that just government should help to make it cheaper for the Ghanaian child. We are talking about the Ghanaian child, that the Ghanaian child would get quality education. There are students who have been placed in schools, they went and they were told that there were no places for them. In the Kwapem North, the Eastern Regional Minister had to come in because 800 students were placed there. The headmaster had requested for 400. Obviously, there was a mistake somewhere, and there are 400 students who have no schools. Now, government is trying to find ways and means to help them. In the northern region, St. Charles Senior High School, the headmaster requested for 150, 282 students were posted to that school. And parents are worried. My child has been placed, I've come, the headmaster says there is no vacancy. There are private schools there that can help. And the point is, we've worked together all these years. Okay, we've worked together all these years. So even if government has the facilities for all schools, for government schools, public schools to absorb all the students, which we don't think is possible.
But it almost looks like it now,
even if
with
they
the
do,
numbers that have
does it
qualified.
mean that we should be completely neglected? Assuming a foreign investor came to Ghana and told government, we are going to set up an industry that would employ 10,000 Ghanaians. We want to engage you so that you help us do that. Would government help? Obviously, government will help. government would talk to that person to employ 10,000
yes.
Ghanaians. We are Ghanaian entrepreneurs, and we have at the moment employed over 10,000 workers, half of whom are graduate teachers. And if we are neglected, what happens to all the workforce?
I want us to, because there's been a response, so I want us to listen to the a deputy minister of education, specifically in charge of this policy, the free SHS, who's obviously responded to some of the things that you're talking about.
They haven't come to us. So if they have any issue, they should come to us and talk to us. If you talk to the press, that is fine, but you want the press to come and talk to us. Why don't you come to the ministry and say that, hey, we have this issue, and then we discuss it. This is not going to compromise any quality. We are rather introducing measures that will improve quality. These are schools that were not having access to textbooks. We are providing textbooks. Headmasters were spending so much time looking for money and ways to pay their vendors, and as a result could not even have the peace of mind to focus on instruction. And that's exactly what we are doing, so that government take care of all these fees that parents were saddled with. Headmasters don't have to be fee collectors, but rather focus on improving instruction. So if anything, what we are doing is going to improve instruction. But let me tell you, we have the secondary education improvement project, which we inherited from the NDC government, which was a good thing. We are continuing. We are meeting with headmasters. We are training math and science teachers to make sure that we improve quality in secondary school. So private, of course, private providers always want a market. But I don't think it's fair for them to disparage an existing system that has worked very well, especially at the option 3 level, just because they want to get a piece of the pie in terms of the market. Private actors have played an important role in secondary, technical and vocational education, and they will continue to do so. Private actors are in the tertiary sector, and they will continue to do very well, because we believe that we need to support the private sector to thrive. But when it comes to a government policy as free senior high school, we are sending students to public schools across the country and not private schools. I am not in a position to make that decision. All that I'll tell you is that at this time, we are focusing and we are sending students to public schools. And let me be transparent here. I also have a private secondary school and personally could have benefited, but that's not the point.
This is a revelation that I guess many people didn't know. He has a school, so he's just like any of you. And
we are very much aware of that.
Okay, so he's in the same situation, just like you.
So it's not personal, as he himself said. The issue is not personal.
But it doesn't seem like it's a big deal to him.
Well, it has to be a big deal, because the MPP government has said that it is a government for the private people. It is a government that believes that the private sector is the engine of growth, and it is working with the private sector in other areas of the economy. And so if the government is a private sector, government that promotes the private sector, that wants the private sector to drive the growth of our nation, then it has to be a big deal, so that the government really truly demonstrates that it is for the private sector. Because if you're helping industry to grow, you're helping health to grow, you're helping other sectors to grow, agriculture and all that, and then education doesn't receive any help, then it doesn't help. Because when the minister says we have played a role and we will continue to play a role, the question is, how do we continue to play a role when we don't have students?
Now, we also need to correct...
How about the fact that he doesn't know about this plight of yours?
Well...
At least you haven't made a formal complaint to him.
Well, before the policy was fully implemented, we met the ministry. We presented a proposal. Everything we are talking about here was presented to them. Now, after it had been implemented, we have not gone back, and we plan to go back and sit down with them and see the way forward, because we know part of these things we are talking about certainly cannot be implemented this year. It's a little late. But going forward, we are hoping that they'll pick it up.
But so why did you wait till, I mean, it's almost too late?
No, we engaged them at the initial phases and gave them a full proposal. But until the policy is fully implemented, you don't really know what direction it's going to be going. Now, I also want to add that we are not asking government to post students to our schools. We are saying give parents the option. For instance, one of the things they could have done is the 150,000 students who had to go for self-placement. Private schools could have been added as an option there. And parents advise that if you select one of these schools, you'll be paying the fees. Now, as a parent...
wait, hang on. As in the parents will be paying the fees?
Yes.
Or government?
No, parents paying the fees.
That's not free SHS then.
Well, the idea is this. A parent has to go to the site, select from schools that have openings. Some parents will go there, will not like any of the schools there.
And they're quality.
And they're quality private schools. So a parent may choose to pay for those fees.
But we are almost aware of the private schools in our various communities.
Well, you see,
so if we can afford...
This is a controlled system. The WASI system, the BC placement system, is a control system. And therefore, government, if they want to really partner with us, can work with us in that direction to give parents the option.
Okay.
If you come to our schools, we'll pay.
If I get you,
Yes.
you're not necessarily calling for any subsidy.
Going forward, we are
So
calling for
we don't
that.
want to confuse the issues. Immediately, this is something that can be done. Add private schools to the self-placement list so that parents can go there and they can select private school they want. Now, but going forward next year, certainly a budget will be read soon. Going forward, we are saying the policy should cover every Ghanaian child.
But I'm just thinking that if a parent could afford to pay the fees, then they would not even bother if their children didn't get any of the schools that they wanted to go to. They would simply just go looking for private schools.
But you know there are a lot of parents who can afford to pay fees in the big schools, and but they are still enjoy the free SHS. People are paying 2,000 Ghana cedis, 3,000 at a basic level.
So the child can get
Right.
8 ones,
Eight
and
ones.
go to the top schools.
And get free education.
If you can pay 2,000, 1,700,
Yes.
1,500 for a day student, the parent drives the child to school, picks the child up, the parent provides lunch, and pays 1,200. And then you go to a private secondary school, which is senior high school, which is a boarding school, and then you pay 850 cedis for 3 meals a day for a graduate teacher to teach your child. It certainly can be done. But if it's been offered to them for free, they will take it for free.
Exactly.
And so let the money follow the student so that government says, I can afford, or I'm affording 564 cedis, 67 pesos per child. Now, if you go to a private school and they charge 700, you pay the difference and give the parents the option.
Yes.
So let's talk about what you're losing now. What are you losing now as this process is almost, I mean, we're almost coming to a close. We're just getting excesses of people who have been placed and things like that.
We are not the only people losing. Certainly, some of our schools are in jeopardy of collapsing completely, of closing their doors. And we are saying when that happens, about 10,000 Ghanaian workers will be unemployed. We contribute about 600 million Ghana cedis a year to the national income by our estimate. We pay taxes. We contribute in the local economy, to our local economies. So we are contributing to the development of this country. So as a country, if this whole industry collapses, we are losing. That is what we said earlier, that if somebody was coming from somewhere and promised 10,000 jobs by an industry he or she is coming to set up, that person will get all the concessions from government. So we are saying that we contribute not only in job creation, but we contribute in providing access to secondary education. And we believe government should continue to work with us to provide that access to Ghanaian children and ensure that private senior high schools continue to play a role. We are not against the free SHS.
And we made that
very clear. It's a good
we are not
initiative.
against it. We want children to be educated.
Yes.
And if government is doing that, that's wonderful.
Yes.
But if they included you in that list, where if your child didn't get their choice, they can now come and look in the pool and choose any available school.
Yes, that's right.
If your school was there, then that won't be the policy that government wants to implement.
No, parents will be
what
advised.
They want to tell parents is, if you choose these schools that we have here in this pool, we're going to pay for you. You are not paying anything. So wouldn't that defeat the purpose of this whole policy?
What we are saying is that the money must follow the Ghanaian child. What we call the voucher system. So everybody understands. Government is not investing in private schools. Government is investing in Ghanaian children. Government wants every Ghanaian child to be well educated. And we are partnering with government as the private sector to make this happen. And we've done this all over the years. So once people understand that the money of government is putting in is going to the individual child, give parents that option. You see, we have a system where even in the school selection, there's first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. In the past, there are certain schools that you can select for the first choice schools. These are the 82 tier 1 schools. Then you have second choice and a third choice. And you can only select a private school in the fourth choice. So we have a situation where I have a basic school and my student gets 1 in the BEC, but my student cannot select my school for first choice. My secondary school, for my high school for first choice. The student has to select me for fourth choice. And by the time he gets the fourth choice, all the child will have already been selected. So even that system was discriminatory. If it's open, choose any school. But here was a situation, I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about in the past, where you can only select a private school in the fourth choice. How does that become fair?
But that's almost what you're calling for even now.
For the immediate, I mean, schools have reopened, Form 1s have gone. There are students at home who haven't gone to school because they went and they were told there was no place for them. There are those who have selected schools that they say they don't like, or they've been posted to schools they don't want to go. Parents are uncomfortable, and they say in the immediate.
So what kind of qualifications would you be looking at right now if you were to admit students?
If
what
the
kind of
student
grades?
is qualified
in terms of aggregate?
By the government. If the government says the child is qualified to go to a public school, then the child is qualified to go to a private school because we are regulated by the ministry. See, we have a 3-tier regulation system. For a senior high school, first, the regional education office, the inspectorate, would have to come and inspect your facility and give you a pass mark. That doesn't end it. Then you go to the inspectorate division, the national office. It doesn't matter where you are. They will go from Accra to your school in the western region, northern region, and then inspect and give you a pass mark. Then you go to the West Africa Examinations Council, and they'll do a third inspection before you are issued with a number, with a WAEC number. So we have gone through all these processes at the regional level, at the national level, and with the West Africa Examinations Council. So if the government believes that the student is qualified to go to a public school, then the student is qualified also to go to a private school, which has been accredited by the government itself.
Okay, so now we are in the situation, we find ourselves here. You as private school owners, what's the plan B? You definitely should have a plan B. You can't run empty classrooms.
Well, certainly, in our own, we are doing our own advertisements, selling ourselves, individual schools, hoping that parents will understand that you don't select a school only because it's free. You select a school because it is quality and can add value to your ward. You know, West African Examination Council is not reducing standards because of free education. Well, if your ward is in a top tier public school somewhere, he or she is writing the same exams as the one in a third tier community school somewhere. And therefore, we are hoping that parents will make an informed decision that based on the school I've been posted to, maybe there's a better option. And we are saying that option is the private sector, that come to a private school that is quality, that can add value to your work. So we hope that a lot of parents will be discerning and will begin to understand these things. So we are waiting for a few weeks to see how this policy fully plays out. Okay. Then we can know what direction to head going forward.
Okay. All right. So any plans of meeting the authorities anytime soon?
Oh, definitely. We will be doing that. Let me put on record that we met them before the implementation of the program. And they were very nice to us.
Extremely nice.
We have to put on record.
Yes.
There are no qualms. We don't have any.
So why did you then go all out with a press briefing when you could have just gone back to them
to the nation
to tell them that after the implementation, we see that truly what we presented to you,
well,
you didn't even look at it.
If you realize our press conference, the first part of it was a message to parents. So it wasn't only a message to government, but the first part of it was a message to parents.
But you still did send a message to government.
Of course,
yes.
It's important.
Whatever we said there, we had already presented to them before the implementation. These are not new things.
Do you think they'll do anything about it?
We believe
we
so.
Hope so.
We are extremely confident because we know this is a listening government. We know that the president is a listening president.
And they believe in the private sector.
And they believe in the private sector. That is the mantra of the NPP. And so we are extremely confident And we plan to continue the engagement. We've been partners for a very long time, and we expect to continue that
All right.
way.
We wish you well. We certainly don't want you to run empty classrooms. So I know people will be calling us, some sending messages of their children being placed in certain places and they not getting accommodation. We'll pass your numbers on to them. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Fred Asare is the Central Regional Chairman of Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools. And Joseph Jamasi is the General Secretary also of the Conference of Heads of Private Second Cycle Schools.